Motorcycle manufacturers do not want you touching these engine tweaks, and there is a reason why. Dealerships are seeing a 40% spike in riders walking in with bikes that suddenly outperform factory specs, and service departments are scrambling to figure out how. These are not your typical bolt-on mods or exhaust swaps. We are talking about internal adjustments that unlock power your bike already has, but was never allowed to use. For decades, manufacturers have fed riders the same story. Stick to factory settings. Follow the manual. Do not mess with what works. Meanwhile, track mechanics and underground builders have been using these exact tricks to squeeze every ounce of performance from engines that were deliberately held back. In this video, I will expose 10 modifications that manufacturers call illegal, but racers call essential. Stay until the end, because trick number 1 involves a simple carburetor adjustment that can boost your horsepower by 15% in under 10 minutes. Number 10. The secret ECU flashing boom you are not supposed to know about. Your motorcycle's brain, the engine control unit, commonly called the ECU, is deliberately programmed to lie about what your engine can actually deliver. This is not some conspiracy theory. It is standard industry practice. Manufacturers intentionally install software limits that restrict your bike's performance by 20 to 30%, all under the guise of meeting emission standards and protecting warranty claims. But riders are waking up to this deception in record numbers. Here is what is really happening. An underground network of independent tuners has emerged, offering services to unlock the performance that was built into your bike from day one but deliberately suppressed. These are not backyard mechanics. They are software engineers who have cracked proprietary codes manufacturers hoped would remain secret forever. The process is called ECU flashing, and it terrifies manufacturers more than any physical modification you could make. Why? Because it exposes the truth. You paid full price for a machine that was programmed to perform at 70% of its actual capability. Take the average 600 cubic centimeter sport bike. After a professional ECU flash, owners routinely report gains of 15 to 25 horsepower without changing a single physical component. The power was always there, hidden behind digital walls erected by manufacturers. What is particularly interesting is where this movement is gaining the most traction. It is not among high-end sport bike owners with unlimited budgets. The real revolution is happening with mid-tier sport bike owners, people who spent $8,000 to $15,000 on machines that were digitally neutered before leaving the factory floor. Manufacturers are fully aware of what is happening. They quietly monitor online forums and social media groups where riders share their flashing experiences. They are tracking VIN numbers and flagging warranty claims that show signs of ECU tampering. Some brands have even deployed countermeasures in newer models, making the software more difficult to crack. But here is the ultimate insult. After selling you a deliberately restricted bike, many manufacturers then offer official performance packages or race kits that essentially unlock capabilities your bike already had. They are charging you twice for the same performance. Once, when you buy the restricted bike, and again, when you pay to remove those restrictions. The ECU flashing community has documented thousands of success stories across virtually every major brand. Kawasaki ZX models, Yamaha R-Series bikes, Honda CBR models. They all respond dramatically to ECU flashing because they were programmed with artificial limitations from the start. Manufacturers would prefer you did not know any of this. They would rather you believe the only way to get more performance is to buy their official accessories or upgrade to a more expensive model. But the secret is out, and riders everywhere are discovering just how much performance they have been denied. That gleaming new motorcycle sitting on the showroom floor with the tag that says brand new? There is a decent chance it has been ridden before, perhaps extensively. Dealerships maintain what they call demo fleets. These are bikes used for test rides and dealer events. What they do not tell you is how often these demo bikes quietly transition into new inventory without any disclosure. Here is the uncomfortable reality. A motorcycle can legally be sold as new even if it has hundreds of miles on the odometer and has been ridden by dozens of different people. Unlike the car industry, where demonstration models must typically be disclosed, motorcycle dealerships operate in a much grayer area. The practice is particularly common with high-demand models. That limited edition sport bike that appears fresh off the truck might have spent the last 3 months being thrashed by every serious buyer who walked through the door. Those 98 miles on the odometer are likely the hardest 98 miles the bike will ever see. Repeated redlining aggressive launches, and rapid gear changes by riders with varying skill levels. But there is a flip side to this deceptive practice that savvy buyers can exploit. These demo bikes often represent extraordinary value if you know what you are actually buying. A bike that has been used as a demo but is still being sold as new can often be negotiated down significantly once you identify what it really is. Look for telltale signs: minor scuffs on levers or pegs, slightly worn tires despite low mileage, or service records that seem premature for a truly new bike. In some cases, you might even notice slight adjustments to the suspension or controls that would not be present on a truly untouched machine. Regional differences in enforcement mean this practice is more prevalent in some areas than others. In states with stronger consumer protection laws, dealers are more careful about disclosure. In other places, it is essentially the Wild West of motorcycle sales. What makes this practice particularly troubling is how dealers manage to circumvent the digital tracking systems put in place by manufacturers. Many brands now require dealers to register demonstration bikes in specific inventory systems. But there are documented workarounds, from resetting odometers, which is illegal and difficult to detect, to transferring miles between similar models in inventory. The consequences of this practice cut both ways. On one hand, you could unknowingly pay full retail price for a motorcycle that has been ridden hard by multiple test riders. On the other hand, if you know what to look for, you could potentially score a nearly new machine for thousands below market price by identifying a demo bike being passed off as new and negotiating accordingly. Number 8. The gray import gold rush nobody talks about. Have you ever wondered why that exciting motorcycle model available in Europe or Asia never seems to make it to your local dealership? The official explanation usually involves market differences or regulatory requirements, but the reality is far more calculated. Manufacturers routinely produce higher performance versions of the same motorcycles for different global markets, with European and Asian specifications often featuring better tuning, fewer restrictions, and more advanced features. What they do not want you to know is that there is a thriving underground network bringing these superior machines to markets where they are officially unavailable. This practice, known as parallel importing or gray market importing, has exploded in recent years as riders discover just how much better the foreign versions of their bikes can be. The differences are not minor. Many parallel imported models offer 30 to 40 more horsepower than their market-appropriate counterparts, along with better components and fewer electronic restrictions. Take the Japanese domestic market versions of popular sport bikes. They are often tuned more aggressively, with engine control unit maps that allow for higher revs and better throttle response. European spec motorcycles frequently come with better suspension components and fewer emission restrictions. These are not different models. They are the same motorcycles your local dealer sells, just without the artificial limitations imposed for your specific market. Manufacturers are actively fighting this trend through lobbying efforts and dealer network pressure. They are pushing for stricter import regulations and threatening dealers who service gray market bikes. The reason is that parallel imports expose the truth about market-specific limitations and undermine carefully segmented pricing strategies. The legal considerations around gray market imports vary widely. In some regions, importing is perfectly legal, but it voids manufacturer warranties. In others, there are complex registration requirements or even outright bans. But where there is demand, there are always workarounds. Examples from the real world are easy to find. Riders importing European spec KTM models report gains of 30-plus horsepower over their American counterparts. Japanese market Honda CBR models feature different cam profiles that allow for higher revs and better top-end performance. Some gray market Ducatis come with race-oriented electronics packages that cost thousands extra in other markets, if they are available at all. The consequences of this practice force riders into an uncomfortable choice. Either accept the neutered version your local manufacturer wants to sell you, or navigate the complex world of gray market imports to access the full power machine they do not want you to have. Number 7. Harley Mechanics dealer flash trick used to boost resale appeal. You found the perfect used Harley-Davidson. During the test ride, it runs beautifully. Smooth idle, perfect fueling, responsive throttle. The seller seems honest, the price is right, and you make the deal. But 3 weeks later, your dream bike is running rough, hesitating at certain revolutions per minute, and exhibiting all the classic signs of tuning issues. What happened? You have likely fallen victim to what industry insiders call the dealer flash trick, a temporary performance tune applied specifically to mask problems long enough to complete a sale. This deceptive practice has become increasingly common, particularly in the Harley-Davidson market, where sophisticated engine management systems can hide a multitude of sins with the right software manipulation. Here is how it works. Sellers with bikes suffering from running issues take them to dealers or independent shops for a pre-sale tune-up. Rather than fixing the underlying mechanical problems, which might be expensive, technicians apply aggressive ECU tunes to the engine control unit, which temporarily mask the symptoms. These performance flashes can hide issues like worn injectors, compromised compression, or failing sensors by adjusting fuel mapping and timing to compensate. The effect is dramatic but temporary. The bike runs great during your inspection and test ride, but as you put more miles on it and the engine faces different conditions, the underlying problems begin to resurface. By then, the sale is complete, and you are left with expensive issues to resolve. This practice was once primarily associated with Harley-Davidson motorcycles, where the prevalence of aftermarket tuning made it easier to disguise. However, it has spread rapidly to other brands as diagnostic tools become more accessible and tuners more sophisticated. Even Japanese sport bikes and European luxury models are now being flashed before sale to hide developing problems. Detecting a bike that has been dealer flashed requires careful attention to detail. Look for disconnects between the bike's condition and its performance. For example, worn tires and chain, but mysteriously perfect fueling could indicate temporary tuning. Check service records for recent tuning work just before the sale. And always insist on riding the bike both cold and fully warmed up, because many flash tunes show their weaknesses during cold starts or after extended riding. The real cost of buying a dealer flashed motorcycle goes well beyond the purchase price. Once the temporary tune begins to fail, you are left addressing not only the original problems, but potentially new issues created by running a compromised engine with aggressive mapping. What seemed like a great deal quickly becomes an expensive mistake. Number 6. Yamaha's quiet comeback via the used market underground. While everyone chases the latest models with their flashy electronics and updated styling, something fascinating is happening in the used motorcycle market. Older Yamaha MT and R series bikes that once sat ignored on dealer lots are now being snapped up by knowledgeable builders and commanding surprising premiums. This is not nostalgia or random chance. It is because professional tuners have discovered something manufacturers hoped would stay secret. These older Yamaha engines, particularly from specific model years between 2006 and 2014, respond to performance modifications with remarkable results that newer, emissions-restricted engines simply cannot match. The engineering fundamentals, stronger bottom ends, more overbuilt components, and less restrictive designs make them superior platforms for significant performance enhancements. The underground community of Yamaha tuners has documented extensive success with these older platforms. Engines like the R6 from 2008 to 2016 and the first-generation MT-09 have become legendary for their ability to handle aggressive remapping, forced induction, and internal modifications without sacrificing reliability. These older engines were built before the strictest emissions regulations forced manufacturers to prioritize cleanliness over performance potential. What is particularly interesting is how these modified older Yamahas are performing against modern machinery. In real-world testing and on the track, properly modified 10 to 15-year-old Yamahas are outperforming brand new sport bikes that cost twice as much. The performance gap is not small either. We are talking about significant advantages in both power delivery and overall capability. This knowledge has triggered a market shift that dealers and manufacturers did not anticipate. Used Yamaha prices for these specific models have begun climbing while other brands continue their normal depreciation curves. Builders are specifically seeking out low-mileage examples of these older Yamahas, knowing their true potential. The consequences of this trend create an interesting dynamic in the market. While most riders fight over the newest models with their built-in limitations and high price tags, informed enthusiasts are quietly buying older Yamahas and building machines that embarrass modern sport bikes at a fraction of the cost. Number 5. Suzuki's vanishing street bike inventory and the price spike it triggered. Try finding a new Suzuki GSX-R, SV, or even a Katana at your local dealership, and you will likely discover what many riders across the country have already learned. Suzuki's street motorcycles have become surprisingly difficult to find. Dealer showrooms that once featured rows of Suzuki sport bikes now display sparse offerings, if any at all. The official explanation typically points to supply chain issues or allocation adjustments, but the reality is far more strategic. Dealers nationwide report dramatically reduced allocations over recent seasons. What was once a reliable flow of popular models has dwindled to a trickle, with some dealerships receiving just a handful of units where they once received dozens. This is not happening by accident. Industry insiders say Suzuki has been deliberately shifting resources away from street motorcycle production and toward their OEM racing contracts and other business segments that offer better margins. The company appears to be making a calculated retreat from certain segments of the street motorcycle market, particularly in regions where profitability has been challenged. This strategic reduction in availability has triggered a remarkable secondary effect. Used Suzuki prices have surged. Models like the GSX-R 750, which once depreciated predictably, have seen their value stabilize or even increase as new bike scarcity drives demand to the used market. Some specific model years of GSX-Rs and SVs have even achieved near collectible status because of their proven reliability and increasing rarity. For Suzuki loyalists, this trend creates a troubling reality. The brand they have supported for years is gradually becoming less accessible, forcing them to either pay premium prices for used examples or consider switching to alternative brands. Some dealerships report losing long-term Suzuki customers to competitors simply because they could not source the new Suzuki models those customers wanted to buy. Finding the Suzuki you want in today's market requires different strategies than in years past. Some riders report success working with dealers in different regions where allocations might be stronger. Others are exploring the certified pre-owned market, or even importing specific models from regions where Suzuki maintains stronger inventory presence. The most concerning aspect of this trend is what it signals about Suzuki's long-term commitment to certain segments of the street motorcycle market. While the company continues to support its racing programs and invest in selected global markets, their reduced presence in the street bike sector of major markets suggests a significant strategic shift that could ultimately leave loyal riders with fewer options. Number 4. The track day tune loophole sellers exploit online. Scroll through any online marketplace for motorcycles, and you will inevitably come across listings with an interesting disclaimer: track use only. These bikes often feature aggressive modifications, stripped-down configurations, and temptingly low prices. They appear to be purpose-built race machines, but in many cases, they are heading straight for public roads. The track day tune loophole has become one of the most exploited gray areas in motorcycle sales, allowing sellers to circumvent marketplace restrictions while connecting with buyers seeking unrestricted performance. Here is how it works. By labeling a highly modified street bike as track only, sellers can avoid the scrutiny that would normally come with selling non-compliant street vehicles. Online platforms typically have policies against selling vehicles that do not meet street legal requirements, but the track-only designation provides plausible deniability. The reality, which both sellers and buyers understand but rarely acknowledge openly, is that many of these motorcycles will never see a track. They are purchased specifically for street use, where their extreme modifications provide thrilling performance at the cost of legality and sometimes safety. This practice carries serious implications beyond just breaking marketplace rules. Insurance companies have grown increasingly sophisticated about identifying motorcycles with race kit histories. They employ various methods to flag vehicle identification numbers associated with track-modified machines, from monitoring social media posts to analyzing repair histories. Riders who purchase these track-only bikes for street use often discover they are uninsurable once insurers identify their true nature. Law enforcement agencies are also becoming more aware of this trend. In some jurisdictions, police departments have specifically trained officers to identify motorcycles with race modifications being used on public roads. The consequences can include hefty fines, impoundment, and, in extreme cases, criminal charges related to operating unsafe or non-compliant vehicles. Real examples of riders getting caught with track-only bikes on public roads illustrate the risks. In one documented case, a rider who purchased a track-prepped GSX-R 1000 was denied an insurance claim after a minor accident when the insurer discovered the bike's extensive modifications made it non-compliant with street regulations. The rider lost both the bike and their investment, with no recourse against the seller who had clearly labeled it track-only. Enforcement efforts targeting this loophole are growing. Some registration authorities now require additional inspections for motorcycles being transferred from owners who have documented track activity. Online marketplaces have implemented more sophisticated filters to identify listings that appear to be circumventing their rules. While the track detuned loophole might seem like an opportunity to acquire a high-performance machine at a discount, the liability can far outweigh the benefits. What looks like a bargain can quickly become an uninsurable liability that attracts unwanted attention from authorities. Number 3. Triumph's secret advantage: detuned power that's waiting to be freed. Triumph motorcycles have developed a devoted following for their character, style, and heritage. What many Triumph owners do not realize is that the bike they love is deliberately holding back. That intuitive feeling many Triumph riders describe, the sense that there is more potential hiding within their engine, is not imagination. It is by design. Triumph, perhaps more than any other major manufacturer, ships its motorcycles with extraordinarily conservative engine maps. This is not about protecting riders from themselves. It is a calculated strategy to satisfy increasingly stringent global emissions requirements while maintaining a single production specification that can be sold worldwide. The result is engines that operate well below their actual capability, a compromise that prioritizes regulatory compliance over performance. This practice is particularly evident in models like the Street Triple, Speed Triple, and various Bonneville variants. European tuners have meticulously documented the hidden potential within these platforms, revealing power gains that far exceed what would be expected from simple exhaust or intake modifications. In many cases, a professional remap alone can unlock 15 to 20% more horsepower and torque without any hardware changes whatsoever. What makes this situation unique is the underground network that has developed around it. While Triumph officially maintains the position that their motorcycles should remain in factory tune, a quiet revolution has emerged among dealers themselves. Many established Triumph dealerships maintain unofficial relationships with independent tuners, discreetly referring trusted customers to specialists who can unlock their bike's true potential without explicitly endorsing the modifications. The European tuning community has been particularly active in documenting the results possible with Triumph remapping. The 2016 to 2020 Thruxton R responds to professional tuning with 20-plus horsepower at the rear wheel, a transformation that changes the entire character of the motorcycle without compromising reliability. Similarly, the 765 cubic centimeter Street Triple engines have demonstrated remarkable responses to remapping, with dyno charts showing dramatic improvements in mid-range torque and top-end power. The process for unlocking this hidden performance follows a consistent pattern across Triumph's range. It typically begins with a custom dyno session to establish baseline performance, followed by systematic adjustments to fuel mapping, ignition timing, and throttle response curves. Unlike some manufacturers who have actively worked to prevent aftermarket tuning, Triumph's systems remain relatively accessible to skilled technicians with the right equipment. The consequences of this approach create an interesting dynamic for Triumph owners. They are effectively riding motorcycles that are artificially limited to meet global regulations, but with relatively straightforward modifications, they can access significant performance improvements that were engineered into the platform from the beginning, but deliberately suppressed for regulatory reasons. Number 2. The Chinese naked bike invasion dealers didn't see coming. A seismic shift is occurring in motorcycle showrooms across the country, and many established dealers are reluctant to acknowledge it. Entry-level and mid-tier sales are evaporating from traditional Japanese and European brands, while riders increasingly gravitate toward names many enthusiasts would not have recognized 5 years ago. This is not a temporary anomaly. It is the beginning of a market transformation that threatens to permanently alter the industry landscape. Chinese manufacturers like CF Moto, Benelli, and QJ Motor have engineered a market disruption through aggressive pricing strategies that established players simply cannot match. What began as a trickle of budget-conscious buyers has become a steady stream of enthusiasts at all levels who have recognized a simple truth. These new players are offering 80% of the performance and features of premium brands at 50 to 60% of the price. Initial skepticism about Chinese motorcycle quality has rapidly eroded as real-world reliability data begins to accumulate. Early adopters who took a chance on these brands report ownership experiences that increasingly rival established manufacturers, particularly in the naked bike and adventure segments, where Chinese brands have focused their efforts. Models like the CF Moto 700 CLX and the Benelli TRK 502 have developed strong reputations for delivering exceptional value without the quality compromises many expected. This market invasion has forced traditional dealers into an uncomfortable position. Their business models, built around premium pricing and substantial profit margins, cannot easily adapt to the new competitive reality. Some have responded by reducing margins on entry-level Japanese models, effectively subsidizing these bikes to remain competitive. Others have begun quietly exploring partnerships with emerging Chinese brands, recognizing that consumer perception is shifting faster than anyone predicted. What makes this trend particularly significant is how it is penetrating demographics that traditionally avoided Chinese products. It is not just budget-conscious new riders embracing these brands anymore. Increasingly, experienced enthusiasts with the means to purchase premium motorcycles are choosing Chinese alternatives after calculating the value proposition. When a $6,000 Chinese naked bike delivers 90% of the experience of a $12,000 Japanese equivalent, the decision becomes compelling even for riders without financial constraints. The long-term implications for the American motorcycle market are profound. Traditional dealers built around Japanese and European brands face a fundamental threat to their business model, as margin compression works its way up from entry-level segments into core product offerings. Manufacturers accustomed to commanding premium prices based on brand heritage and perceived quality differentials find those advantages eroding as Chinese quality improves and rider perceptions evolve. This is not just about price competition. It represents a potential restructuring of the entire motorcycle market hierarchy that has remained relatively stable for decades. Traditional dealers are losing customers to brands that offer comparable experiences at radically different price points, and the gap in both quality and perception is closing faster than most industry veterans anticipated. Number 1. How trade-in inflation skews the real cost of your new ride. You have negotiated hard on your new motorcycle purchase. After hours at the dealership, the salesperson finally comes back with an offer that seems too good to refuse. They are offering $2,000 more for your trade-in than you expected. You feel like you have won the negotiation, and you eagerly sign the papers, confident you have secured an exceptional deal. In reality, you have fallen victim to one of the most effective psychological tricks in the modern dealership playbook. Welcome to the world of trade-in inflation, a sophisticated pricing strategy that exploits basic human psychology to create the illusion of value, while actually increasing dealer profits. Here is how it works. Rather than negotiating on the actual purchase price of your new motorcycle, dealers shift the conversation to your trade-in value. By artificially inflating what they are offering for your old bike, they create a powerful sense of reciprocity and value that masks what is happening elsewhere in the deal. While you are focused on the unexpectedly generous trade-in offer, the dealer quietly adjusts other aspects of the transaction. The manufacturer's suggested retail price remains untouched. Dealer preparation fees mysteriously increase. Financing terms shift slightly, with interest rates edging higher or loan terms extending longer. Documentation fees and add-on products appear with minimal discussion. Each adjustment seems minor in isolation, but collectively, they more than offset the inflated trade-in value. This practice has become increasingly prevalent as manufacturers reduce direct-to-dealer incentives. With slimmer margins on new motorcycle sales, Dealers have become more creative in how they structure deals to maintain profitability. Trade-in inflation delivers the perfect mechanism. It creates customers who believe they have negotiated successfully while actually paying more than necessary for their new purchase. The psychological effectiveness of this approach cannot be overstated. Research in consumer behavior consistently shows that people experience greater satisfaction from perceived gains, like an unexpectedly high trade-in value, than from avoided losses, like a discount off the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Dealers exploit this cognitive bias deliberately and systematically. Calculating the real cost of your deal requires looking beyond the trade-in value to examine the entire transaction. What matters is not how much you got for your old bike, but the net difference between your old motorcycle's actual market value and what you are paying for the new one. This gap represents the true cost of the transaction, regardless of how the numbers are distributed across trade-in value and purchase price. As manufacturer incentives have declined in recent years, this practice has become more common across virtually all motorcycle brands and dealerships. Even premium brands that once prided themselves on transparent pricing have increasingly adopted versions of this approach. Negotiating an honest deal requires shifting the conversation away from trade-in value and focusing instead on the out-the-door price differential between your trade's actual market value and the total you are paying. By separating these transactions conceptually, thinking of the trade as one deal and the purchase as another, you can avoid the psychological trap that leads so many riders to pay thousands more than necessary. These are not just industry tricks. They are calculated strategies that shape everything about your riding experience. Every restriction, every limitation, every so-called safety feature serves corporate interests first and foremost. The manufacturers have perfected the art of selling you less while charging you more, and they are counting on your ignorance to protect their profit margins. What's most revealing is how these practices span the entire industry. From engine control unit, ECU, restrictions that hide your bike's true potential to deceptive pricing tactics that exploit psychological vulnerabilities, manufacturers have built an ecosystem designed to extract maximum profit while delivering minimum value. The question is not whether you are being manipulated, it is how many different ways it is happening at once. Are you riding a motorcycle that is artificially limited by software? Did you overpay because of trade-in inflation? Is your new bike actually a demo that dozens of others have already ridden? The power balance shifts the moment you understand these realities. Knowledge is not just power. It is financial leverage, performance potential, and ownership satisfaction. The manufacturers do not want you to know these things because informed riders make different choices, and different choices mean smaller profit margins. Do you think manufacturers are right to restrict performance? Or should riders have full access to their bike's capabilities? Who will be the next brand to fall as Chinese manufacturers continue their market invasion? Subscribe now. Our next video exposes 7 motorcycle maintenance myths that destroy engines, and we will reveal the service interval lies that are costing you thousands in unnecessary repairs.